The giant alien ship appeared above Earth without warning. It moved silently through space, its dark metal surface reflecting the distant stars. On the bridge of the USS Defiant, Admiral Susan Clark watched the alien vessel with narrowed eyes. This was not a friendly visit. "They're sending a message," said Communications Officer Lisa Howard. Her fingers moved quickly over her control panel. "Putting it on screen now." The main screen flickered to life. A tall, insect-like alien appeared. It had a hard green shell, 6 long arms, and large compound eyes that shimmered with an unnatural light. This was High Counselor Zexatara of the Galactic Council, a group that controlled most of the known galaxy. "Humans," Zexatara said, its voice clicking and buzzing through the translator. "Your species has grown too quickly. Your ships now travel to stars that are not yours. Your weapons become more dangerous each year. The Galactic Council finds this unacceptable." Admiral Clark stepped forward. "We have a right to explore and defend ourselves." The alien's head tilted at an odd angle. "You have no rights except those the Council grants you. We have made a decision. Earth will provide tribute to show its respect for the proper order of things." "Tribute?" Admiral Clark's voice was steady, but her hands clenched into fists at her sides. 1,000 of your best humans," Zexatara said. "Your smartest thinkers, your most skilled workers, your greatest leaders. They will serve as advisors on Council worlds." Everyone on the bridge knew what this really meant. The aliens wanted hostages to control Earth. "And if we refuse?" asked Admiral Clark. Zexatara's mouthparts clicked together in what might have been a smile. "Then we will take them anyway, along with many more. Your world has 30 Earth days to comply." The screen went black. Admiral Clark turned to her crew. Their faces showed shock and anger. "Get me the president," she said quietly, "now." In the White House, President Alan Winters sat behind his desk as Admiral Clark explained the alien demand. His face grew darker with each word. "So they want our best people," the president said when she finished, "to use against us." "Yes, sir," Admiral Clark replied. They didn't try to hide it. Defense Secretary George Foster paced the room. "This is because we fought back against the raiders at Proxima Centauri last month. The Council told us not to defend our colony there, but we did anyway. And now they want to make sure we can't do that again," said the president. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Washington Monument in the distance. "How many ships does the Council have?" "Thousands," Admiral Clark said. "Maybe tens of thousands. We have no way to fight them directly." National Security Advisor Diane Miller spoke up. "Then we have to give them what they asked for. 1,000 people. I won't send our best scientists and leaders to be prisoners," the president said firmly. "No," said Diane Miller with a small smile. "But the Council didn't actually say which humans we have to send, did they?" President Winters turned away from the window. "Explain." "They asked for 1,000 humans. They expect us to send our best and brightest. But what if we sent them something else entirely?" Diane's eyes had a dangerous gleam. "What if we sent them 1,000 of our worst?" The room went quiet as everyone considered this idea. "You mean criminals?" asked Secretary Foster. "Not just any criminals," Diane replied. "The smart ones, the dangerous ones, the ones who know how to cause trouble." President Winters slowly sat back down. "They wanted advisors. They'll get them." He pressed a button on his desk. "Get me the director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons right away." 3 days later, Warden Patricia Rodriguez walked through Colorado's highest security prison. Beside her was General William Harris, head of the newly created Extraterrestrial Affairs Division. "Let me make sure I understand," Patricia said. "You want to send 1,000 dangerous prisoners to alien worlds as our tribute to the Galactic Council?" "Not just any prisoners," General Harris replied. "We need smart ones, clever ones, people who can adapt to new situations and cause trouble without getting caught." They stopped in front of a cell. Inside was a tall man with cold eyes who watched them with clear interest. "Richard Davis," Patricia read from her tablet. "Former CEO who killed 3 people who tried to expose his illegal weapon sales." Tell me about him, said the general. Smart enough to build $1 billion company, cold enough to kill anyone who got in his way. Been here 5 years, model prisoner on the surface, but we've caught him running schemes even from inside. And also, Harris nodded. Perfect, who else do you have like him? They continued through the prison, stopping at more cells. Each prisoner they selected was dangerous in their own way, but also smart, resourceful, and able to work in difficult situations. Later that day, Richard Davis and 20 others selected prisoners sat in a secure room. Dr. Nancy Wilson stood before them explaining their new opportunity. Each of you has been chosen for a special mission, she said. You'll be sent to alien worlds as Earth's tribute to the Galactic Council. If you complete your mission and return, you'll receive a full pardon for all your crimes. And what exactly is our mission? Asked Richard Davis. Dr. Wilson smiled. Officially, you are Earth's tribute. You'll be assigned as advisors to different alien worlds. What you do there is up to you. She passed out folders to each prisoner. These contain information about the aliens you'll meet, their weaknesses, their political systems. Study them carefully. A woman with sharp features spoke up. Catherine Adams had been a spy before she was caught and convicted of killing a foreign diplomat. You're sending us as weapons, she said. It wasn't a question. We're sending you as tribute, Dr. Wilson replied. The council should have been more specific about what they asked for. Richard Davis leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. For the first time in 5 years, he felt truly alive. When do we leave? Training starts tomorrow, said Dr. Wilson. You have 27 days to learn everything you can about alien psychology, technology, and social systems. Make them count. As the prisoners filed out, Richard caught Catherine's eye. They shared a look of understanding. They might be criminals, but now they were Earth's first line of defense, and they would make the aliens regret ever making demands of humanity. The training center was built deep under a mountain. For 20 days, Richard Davis and the other selected prisoners worked harder than they ever had before. They learned about alien biology, politics, and technology. They studied languages and practiced using strange alien tools. Most importantly, they learned how to cause trouble without getting caught. Richard excelled at the training. His quick mind absorbed the new information easily. During a break, he sat with Catherine Adams, the former spy. Why did you agree to this mission? He asked her. Catherine took a sip of water. 10 years in prison or a chance at freedom? Not a hard choice. She looked at him with sharp eyes. What about you? Richard smiled slightly. I'm bored in prison. Out there among the stars, that's a game worth playing. Their instructor, Dr. Nancy Wilson, entered the room. Good news, she said. We've identified your assignments. The council is sending tributes to 17 different worlds. She handed out data tablets. Richard looked at his and saw a strange, alien world covered mostly in purple oceans. Drakari Prime, he read, home of the council's largest military fleet. You'll be assigned to their navigation systems team, Dr. Wilson told him. Your cover story is that you were a top Earth programmer. I did run a tech company, Richard replied. That part's not a lie. Catherine will go to Xanthra Prime, the council's capital, Dr. Wilson continued. The rest of you will be spread across key worlds in the council's territory. What exactly do you want us to do once we're there? Asked Ben Rogers, a former bank robber known for his elaborate schemes. Dr. Wilson's face became serious. Your primary mission is to gather intelligence, learn their weaknesses. But if an opportunity presents itself to create difficulties for the council, use your judgment. You mean sabotage, said Catherine bluntly. I mean serving Earth's interests. Dr. Wilson replied carefully. Remember, officially you are there as tribute. If you're caught causing trouble, Earth will deny any knowledge of your actions. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, thinking about what lay ahead. The next few months would determine not just his future, but possibly the future of all humanity. 5 days later, 1,000 prisoners stood in neat rows inside a massive hangar. They wore plain gray uniforms that marked them as Earth's tribute. Armed guards stood nearby, keeping up the pretense that these were dangerous criminals being sent away. Commander Eric Reynolds walked along the lines, inspecting the prisoners one last time. He stopped in front of Richard. "Davis," he said loudly. For the benefit of any listening devices, "Step forward." Richard did as he was told. Commander Reynolds patted him down roughly, as if checking for weapons. While doing so, he slipped a small chip into Richard's pocket. "Emergency communicator," he whispered. "If things go bad, activate it. We'll try to extract you." "Try?" Richard whispered back. "This isn't a guaranteed round trip," Commander Reynolds replied softly. Then louder, "Clear! Next!" The massive transport ship that would carry them to the Council was called the Diplomatic Envoy. It was a plain vessel with minimal comforts. The prisoners were loaded into sleeping pods for the journey, which would take 3 weeks. Before Richard entered his pod, he saw Catherine across the room. She gave him a small nod. No words were needed. They both understood the risks and the potential rewards of what lay ahead. 3 weeks later, Richard was awakened as the ship approached the Galactic Council's central hub world, Xanthra Prime. Through a viewing port, he saw a massive space station orbiting a beautiful blue-green planet. Hundreds of alien ships of different shapes and sizes moved around the station. "All tributes report to the main hall for processing," announced a voice over the speakers. In the main hall, Admiral Susan Clark stood before them. Although they had never met before, Richard knew she was here to officially deliver Earth's tribute to the Council. "Remember," she said to the assembled prisoners, "you represent Earth now. Your actions will have consequences for everyone back home." The ship docked at the station with a gentle bump. The main doors opened, and a group of aliens entered. At their head was a tall reptilian creature with shimmering scales that changed color as it moved. This was High Administrator Kalorn, one of the most powerful members of the Council. "The tributes will be processed and assigned to their designated worlds," Kalorn said, looking over the humans with what seemed like satisfaction. "The Council acknowledges Earth's compliance." Richard stood still as a small device was waved over him, scanning him for weapons or communication equipment. The emergency chip in his pocket was designed to be undetectable by standard scanners. "Group 7, prepare for transfer to secondary transport," announced an alien voice. Richard was part of Group 7, heading to Drakari Prime. As he moved toward the exit with his group, he passed Catherine, who was staying on Xanthra Prime. Their eyes met briefly. In that moment, a silent message passed between them. "Good luck. We'll need it." The next day, Richard found himself on another ship, heading deeper into Council space. 5 other humans were with him, all part of Earth's tribute to the Drakari. They sat together in a small compartment, speaking quietly. "Did you all volunteer for this?" asked a woman named Laura Bell, a former computer hacker. The others nodded. "What's your plan?" asked a man named Sam Wright. Richard looked around carefully before answering. "First, learn everything I can. Find weaknesses. Make friends if possible." He lowered his voice even more. "Then wait for the right moment to show the Council why taking hostages from Earth was a very bad idea." Laura smiled slightly. "I like that plan." As the ship carried them toward Drakari Prime, Richard gazed out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, counting on them to succeed. He thought about the life he had left behind, the prison cell, the failed business, the crimes he had committed. Now he had a chance to write a different story, not just for himself but for all of humanity, and he intended to make sure it was a story the Galactic Council would never forget. The transport ship landed on Drakari Prime after 5 days of travel. Richard Davis and the 5 other humans walked down the ramp into a world of purple skies and strange smells. 3 tall, thin aliens with blue skin waited for them. These were the Drakari, a species known for their military power in the Council. "Humans," said the tallest alien in a flat voice. "I am Fleet Commander Vorex. You will be assigned duties according to your skills. You will obey all orders without question." The humans were taken to a large building with small rooms. Richard's room had just a bed and a desk. A screen on the wall showed alien writing that changed every few seconds. "You begin work tomorrow," said a Drakari guard before locking the door. Richard sat on the bed thinking. He had studied the Drakari language during training, but seeing it written was different. He stared at the changing words on the screen, looking for patterns. By morning, he understood some of it. The screen was showing news from around the council worlds. The next day, Richard was taken to a large room filled with glowing control panels. Many Drakari worked at these panels, monitoring the movements of their fleet. "This is the human advisor," Vorex said to a smaller Drakari. "It will help upgrade the navigation systems." The smaller alien looked at Richard with doubt. "Does it understand our technology?" "It claims to be skilled with computer systems," Vorex replied. "Test its abilities." For the next week, Richard was given simple tasks to prove his worth. He worked hard and impressed the Drakari with how quickly he learned their systems. What they didn't know was that Richard was mapping the entire network in his mind, finding its weak points. In the second week, they gave him access to more important systems. Richard worked alongside a young Drakari named Teliv, who seemed less hostile than the others. "Why did your world send you here?" Teliv asked one day. Richard chose his words carefully. "Our leaders decided it was best to cooperate with the council's demands." "But you were not chosen freely," Teliv said. "The others say you are criminals." Richard kept his face neutral. "On Earth, I made mistakes. This is my chance to serve a greater purpose." Teliv seemed to accept this. Over the next few days, he taught Richard more about the fleet's navigation systems. Richard learned that the Drakari ships depended on a central command network. If that network were compromised, the entire fleet would be affected. Meanwhile, across council space, other tributes from Earth were also working. On Xanthra Prime, Catherine Adams had been assigned to the council's diplomatic office. Her job was to translate human communications for council officials. This gave her access to sensitive information from many worlds. Catherine made herself useful and unnoticed. She organized files, learned the council's protocols, and fixed small problems before they became big ones. The aliens began to trust her with more responsibilities. One evening, while working late, Catherine accessed a secure terminal. With skills she had learned as a spy, she sent a coded message to other humans across council space. Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2. Richard received this message on his emergency communicator. That night, he began his real work. Using his knowledge of the Drakari systems, he created a small program that would hide inside the navigation network. The program would do nothing for months. Then, when a specific command was sent, it would activate. On the mining world of Beltar 4, another human tribute named Ben Rogers was working in the planet's communication center. He had spent weeks learning how the massive antennas connected Beltar to other council worlds. "Your task today is to improve the signal efficiency," his Beltar supervisor told him. "Yes, Overseer," Ben replied respectfully. As he worked on the communications array, he made tiny changes to the security protocols. These changes would allow him to send messages that could not be traced. That night, Ben contacted Richard and Catherine. Beltar communications modified. Ready for next step. On 17 council worlds, humans worked quietly to lay the groundwork for what was to come. They followed Earth's plan while adapting to unexpected situations. Some made friends among the aliens, learning that not all council species approved of how Earth had been treated. 3 months passed. Richard had gained enough trust to work on the Drakari's most sensitive systems. He was even invited to attend meetings where fleet movements were discussed. During one such meeting, he learned that the council was planning to increase its demands on Earth. They would soon ask for more tributes and new restrictions on human space travel. Richard sent this information to Earth using the secure network Ben had created. On Earth, President Alan Winters received the message in the White House. "Situation room. They're getting ready to make more demands," he told his advisors. "But our people are in place now." "What are your orders, Mr. President?" asked Defense Secretary Foster. President Winters looked at the star map showing where all the human tributes had been placed. "It's time for Phase 3. Send the activation code." Back on Drakari Prime, Richard was working late when his emergency communicator beeped softly. The message was simple. Execute. Richard took a deep breath. Everything he had worked for over the past months came down to this moment. He entered a series of commands into the Drakari navigation system, then activated the program he had hidden months earlier. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Richard left the control room and walked calmly back to his quarters. Once inside, he retrieved a small device he had built from parts stolen over many weeks. It was a personal shield generator, based on Drakari technology, but modified for human use. Across Drakari Prime, alarms began to sound. Richard looked out his window and saw ships rising from their docks, their engines glowing in the purple twilight. But something was wrong. The ships moved in strange patterns, some flying too close to others. In the distance, two ships collided, creating a bright flash against the darkening sky. Richard activated his shield generator and opened his door. The corridor was empty, all guards having rushed to deal with the crisis. He moved quickly through the building toward a small shuttle bay he had identified months ago. On Xanthra Prime, Catherine had also received the execution order. She entered the Council's communication center and uploaded a special program into the main system. Moments later, classified files began transmitting themselves to public channels across the Council network. On Beltar 4, Ben Rogers disabled the planet's defense grid for exactly 3 minutes. In that brief window, a small, unmarked ship entered, the atmosphere landing near his position. Ben and 4 other human tributes boarded the ship, which quickly departed. Similar scenes played out across Council space. Some humans caused major disruptions before escaping. Others left quietly, their sabotage set to activate days or weeks later. A few remained in place, continuing to gather intelligence for Earth. Richard reached the shuttle bay and found it unguarded. He boarded a small Drakari shuttle, using the access codes he had memorized weeks before. As the shuttle lifted off, he saw chaos spreading across the military base. The navigation system virus had done its work well. As he piloted the shuttle into space, Richard received a new message on his communicator. Rendezvous at coordinates 227A3. Extraction team waiting. Richard smiled as he set course for the meeting point. Earth had planned well. The Council had demanded tribute, thinking they would receive hostages to control humanity. Instead, they had invited their own destruction from within. The lesson was clear. Never underestimate humans, especially the dangerous ones. Richard's stolen shuttle moved through space heading toward the meeting point. He watched the radar screen carefully. 3 Drakari military ships were searching the area, but their navigation systems were still not working properly. They moved, in random patterns, unable to coordinate their search. After 2 hours, Richard reached the coordinates. At first, he saw nothing. Then a ship appeared suddenly, as if coming out of nowhere. It was an Earth ship, but unlike any Richard had seen before. It was small and dark, designed to be hard to detect. Drakari shuttle. "This is Earth Recovery. Team," came a voice over the radio. "Identify yourself." "This is Richard Davis, tribute from Earth," he replied. "Request pickup." "Approach slowly and prepare to dock," the voice instructed. Richard guided the shuttle toward the Earth ship as he got closer. A door opened in its side. He carefully maneuvered the shuttle into the opening. There was a soft bump as the ships connected. A woman in a dark uniform greeted him as he stepped out of the shuttle. "Mr. Davis? I'm Captain Kelly Martinez. Welcome aboard the Shadow." Richard looked around at the small but advanced ship. "I didn't know Earth had stealth vessels." Captain Martinez smiled slightly. "There's a lot the Council doesn't know about Earth. We've been busy since they made their demands." She led him to a small room where 3 other humans sat. Richard recognized Ben Rogers from Beltar 4 and 2 others who had been part of the tribute group. "How many got out?" Richard asked. So far, about 300, Captain Martinez replied. We have 12 extraction ships operating across Council space. Some tributes are still in place, continuing their work. And Catherine Adams? Richard asked. Still on Xanthra Prime? She chose to remain there. Her position is too valuable to abandon yet. Richard nodded. He wasn't surprised. Catherine had always been the most committed to the mission. What happened on Drakari Prime? Ben asked. We heard there was chaos in their fleet. Richard smiled. Their ships are shooting at each other. I reprogrammed their navigation systems to misinterpret standard commands. When a commander orders a ship to move left, it moves right. When they try to form a defense pattern, they end up in attack positions. Captain Martinez looked impressed. Well done. That gives us more time. Time for what? Richard asked. Phase 4, she replied. But first, we need to get you back to Earth for debriefing. The Shadow traveled through space, avoiding Council patrols. They picked up more escaped tributes along the way. After 2 weeks, they reached the edge of Earth's solar system. Richard looked out the window as they approached Earth. It looked peaceful from space, a blue and green jewel against the darkness. Hard to believe that this small planet had just struck a major blow against the powerful Galactic Council. At Earth's main space station, Richard and the others were greeted as heroes. Admiral Susan Clark was there to meet them. Congratulations, she said. Your actions have thrown the Council into confusion. They're still trying to understand what happened. Richard was taken to a secure facility where he spent 3 days explaining everything he had learned about Drakari technology and defenses. Scientists and military officers asked countless questions. On the 4th day, he was brought to the White House. President Alan Winters wanted to thank him personally. Mr. Davis, the president said, shaking his hand. What you and the others accomplished was remarkable. You've given Earth a fighting chance. What happens now? Richard asked. The president gestured to a screen on the wall. It showed a map of Council space with red dots marking where the human tributes had caused problems. The Council is in crisis, President Winters explained. Their military fleets are confused. Their communication systems are compromised. Their leaders are fighting each other over leaked secrets. And Catherine? Richard asked. She's still out there. Ms. Adams is doing crucial work, the president said. She's now in a position to feed false information directly to the Council leadership. They trust her because she remained when others fled. Defense Secretary Foster entered the room. Mr. President, the Council has sent a message. They demand we explain what happened. Are they threatening us? The president asked. No, Foster replied, looking surprised. They're asking for a meeting. They want to discuss terms. The president smiled. They're nervous. Good. Prepare the diplomatic team. It's time for Phase 4. 1 week later, Richard watched on television as a Council ship landed at the United Nations headquarters in New York. High Administrator Killorn emerged, looking less confident than when Richard had first seen him. The talks between Earth and the Council lasted for 5 days. News reports showed tense meetings and long negotiations. Finally, President Winters addressed the world. Today, I am pleased to announce that Earth has reached an agreement with the Galactic Council, he said. The Council has recognized Earth as a sovereign and independent world, with the right to defend itself and explore space freely. Richard listened carefully to the rest of the speech. Earth would join the Council as an equal member, not as a subject. World. The tribute program was ended. All remaining humans on Council worlds would be returned. That evening, Richard received a call from General William Harris. Davis, we need your help again, the general said. The Council has agreed to share some of their technology with us. We need people who understand their systems to help us adapt it for our use. What about my pardon? Richard asked. We were promised freedom if we completed the mission. And you'll get it, the general assured him. But your unique skills are still valuable to Earth. We're offering you a job. Good pay, interesting work, and no more prison. Richard thought about it. He had enjoyed the challenge of outsmarting the Drakari, and working with alien technology would be fascinating. I accept, he said. When do I start? 2 days later, Richard was working at a new facility outside Washington, D.C. He led a team studying the Drakari navigation systems he had sabotaged. During lunch, he received surprising news. Catherine Adams had returned to Earth. She had been working directly with council leaders on Xanthra Prime until the very end, feeding them false information and steering their decisions in Earth's favor. That evening, Richard met Catherine at a small restaurant. You stayed behind, he said as they sat down. That was risky. Catherine smiled. It worked, didn't it? The council never suspected I was the source of their problems. They thought I was the loyal one who remained at my post. What will you do now? Richard asked. The same as you, I expect, she replied. Help Earth prepare for what comes next. This was just the beginning, Richard. The council backed down this time, but they won't forget what happened. We embarrassed them. Richard nodded. He knew she was right. Earth had won an important victory, but the Galactic Council was still powerful. The humans had proven they shouldn't be underestimated, but the real challenge was just beginning. As they talked, Richard felt a strange new feeling. For the first time in years, he was proud of what he had done. He had used his skills to protect his world, not just to gain power or money. To Earth, he said, raising his glass. To Earth, Catherine replied. And to the future. Outside the restaurant, the stars shone brightly in the night sky. Somewhere up there, the council was licking its wounds and rethinking its approach to the troublesome humans of Earth. They had learned an important lesson. Be very careful what you ask for when dealing with humans. You might get exactly what you deserve. 6 months passed. Earth's position in the galaxy had changed completely. As a full member of the Galactic Council, humans now had the right to travel freely through Council space. Earth ships visited distant worlds for trade and exploration. Earth scientists worked with alien experts to develop new technologies. Richard Davis led the Alien Technology Division at a research center near Washington, D.C. His team studied and improved the systems they had learned about during their time. As tributes, under his leadership, they created new defense systems that combined human ingenuity with alien science. One morning, Richard arrived at work to find General William Harris waiting in his office. Davis, we have a situation, the general said without greeting. The council is sending a delegation to Earth today. They want to discuss ongoing security concerns. Richard sat down at his desk. What kind of concerns? They claim there are still human agents causing problems on their worlds, the general explained. And they might be right. Not all the tributes returned to Earth. Some disappeared into council space. What does this have to do with me? Richard asked, though he had a good guess. President Winters wants you at the meeting. You understand how the council thinks better than most of our diplomats. 3 hours later, Richard sat in a conference room at the United Nations building. President Winters led the Earth delegation. Across the table sat 3 council representatives, including High Administrator Killorn. The council has been patient, Killorn said, his scales shifting to a dark orange color that Richard recognized as a sign of anger. But incidents continue to occur across council space. Just last month, financial records on Gantris Station were altered, causing riots when citizens discovered guild houses had been stealing from them for centuries. President Winters kept his face neutral. Earth cannot be held responsible for internal problems in the council. We have honored all aspects of our agreement. Yet these problems began after your tributes were sent to our worlds, Killorn insisted. And many of those humans remain unaccounted for. Richard spoke up. If I may, Mr. President, High Administrator, when you demanded tribute from Earth, you took people against their will. Some escaped during the chaos 6 months ago. Is it surprising they would not want to return to Earth where they were prisoners? Perhaps they sought freedom elsewhere in the galaxy. Killorn's eyes fixed on Richard. You were one of them. A tribute, who caused considerable damage to the Drakari fleet. I was following orders then, Richard replied calmly. Now I work to build cooperation between our worlds. but others might not be so forgiving of how they were treated. The meeting continued for hours. In the end, a compromise was reached. Earth would help find the missing humans in exchange for the Council, sharing more of their advanced technology. After the meeting, Richard walked with President Winters back to their transport. "Do you think they believed us?" Richard asked quietly. The President smiled slightly. "They believe what they want to believe, that we're still new to galactic politics and eager to please the Council." "And the missing tributes?" "Some truly are, living new lives across Council space," the President said. "Others are still working for us, gathering information. The Council doesn't need to know which is which." 2 days later, Richard received a secure message from Catherine Adams. She was no longer working on Earth but had taken a new assignment. The message was brief. "Phase 5 begins. Meet at the old location." That evening, Richard went to the same small restaurant where he had met Catherine 6 months earlier. She was already there, looking different with shorter hair and new confidence in her movements. "You're going back out there," Richard said as he sat down. It wasn't a question. Catherine nodded. "The Vexnar sector. They're a new species joining the Council. They don't know much about humans yet. Intelligence gathering? And friendship building," Catherine added. "Not all Council species are happy with how Earth was treated. Some see us as potential allies against the dominant factions." Richard considered this. Dividing the Council from within. Exactly. The Council has ruled the galaxy for thousands of years by keeping other species afraid and competing with each other. Humans are different. We work together when threatened. "When do you leave?" Richard asked. "Tomorrow. A trading ship will take me to the Vexnar homeworld. I'll pose as a cultural exchange officer." Richard felt a strange sadness. He had grown to respect Catherine greatly over the past year, perhaps something more than respect. "I could request a transfer," he suggested. "My skills would be useful out there too." Catherine smiled. "Earth needs you here, Richard, for now at least. But when Phase 6 begins..." She left the sentence unfinished. "What is Phase 6? Richard asked. "Ask the President," Catherine replied. "But I can tell you this. Earth isn't just joining the galactic community, we're changing it." The next day, Richard met with President Winters to request information about Phase 6. The President took him to a secure room deep beneath the White House. "What I'm about to show you is known to only 12 people on Earth," the President said as he activated a display screen. The screen showed a star map of the galaxy. Certain areas were highlighted in different colors. "The yellow areas are where the Council's control is strongest," the President explained. "The blue areas show species who are unhappy with Council rule but afraid to act. The green areas are regions where humans are now welcomed as friends and trading partners." Richard studied the map. The green areas were small but growing. "Phase 6, the President continued, "is the formation of a new alliance. Not to destroy the Council but to reform it. To end the practice of dominant species exploiting others. And the tributes are helping with this?" Richard asked. "Those who chose to stay in Council space are our ambassadors, whether the Council knows it or not. They're sharing human ideas about freedom and cooperation with species who have never considered such concepts." Richard thought about this. The Council demanded tribute, thinking they would weaken us. Instead, they gave us access to the entire galaxy. "Exactly," the President said. "Their greatest mistake was thinking of humans as just another species to control. They didn't understand what makes us different." "Which is what?" Richard asked. "When other species face a stronger power, they submit and survive. Humans resist and find ways to win even when outmatched. That's why the Council fears us now. Not because of our technology or our weapons, but because of our ideas." 1 year later, Richard stood on the observation deck of Earth's new space station. Through the large windows, he could see ships from 20 different alien worlds docked at the station. Some were Council members, others were independent worlds who had signed treaties with Earth. Catherine stood beside him, recently returned from her mission to the Vexnar. "It's happening faster than we expected," she said. The Vexnar have formally requested Earth's protection from Council demands. And the Council's response? Richard asked. They're divided, Catherine replied. Some want to punish the Vexnar, as an example to others. But many now recognize that working with humans is better than working against us. Richard looked out at the stars. In just 18 months, humans had gone from being an isolated species facing an overwhelming alien power to becoming a key player in galactic politics, all because the Council had demanded tribute without understanding who they were dealing with. What's next for us? Richard asked, looking at Catherine. She smiled. The future. And it's going to be interesting. Far across the galaxy, on the Galactic Council's central world, High Administrator Kalorn looked at reports from across Council, space. More and more species were forming ties with Earth, adopting human ideas and human ways. The tribute demand that was meant to control humanity had instead unleashed it upon the galaxy, and the Council would never be the same again.